Hello ladies and gentlemen, Ford here from Ford's Tool Reviews. Today I've got two different tools. They're the exact same tool, but they're made by different brands. We have one by Stanley, we have one by Pittsburgh. This is Walmart slash Stanley tools, and we have Pittsburgh from Harbor Freight. Now, the first thing we're going to talk about is how many, what they are, how many extra things do they have, where are they made, and what are the prices on these two tools. I will be happy to announce that they are both pass-through socket sets in SAE and metric. I now am the proud owner of 3 of these tools. You can never have too many of these because you can only have one SAE and one metric size of each in each set. So now I have 3 times, let's see, that's 16 sockets here, 21, that's 37, 48 sockets now that I have. Plus the regular Pittsburgh sockets that I bought. And the ratcheting screwdriver. But let's go ahead and talk about the first one, which is the most recent Stanley. We're going to talk about the one that has the least amount of pieces first. Talk about what it has, what are the key different features on it. And then we're going to talk about the Pittsburgh. And this is only going to be part 1. So let's go ahead and jump into it. First off, the Stanley. Let me grab the ratchet here. Alright, so here's the ratchet right here. Here it is. It's got a chrome vanadium finish. It has a wider paddle select. This is what I would consider a paddle select because of the size. It's also a little bigger. It's actually slightly bigger than the Pittsburgh. The thumb switch itself is slightly bigger than the Pittsburgh. This one has a more direct thud when you engage it into the gear that you want, forward or reverse. Much more distinctive sound. I greased this one with grease, so ratcheting wise, it's a little quieter. Normally these aren't going to be quiet because you're putting all the force on the ring. And there's all this extra space in here. I'm going to say probably about a good inch or 2 inches across, diagonal and up and down. So circumference wise, this is probably about, I'd say probably about 4 inches, 4.5 inches all the way around. If you did your math right. Let's talk about the grip. So the grip is Stanley rubberized and yellow tough ABS plastic. And this is chrome vanadium steel. So I believe that's what Stanley uses. Has a full lifetime warranty. Here's the package. Forgot to mention, both of these tools also have a full lifetime warranty. If any Stanley mechanics tool ever fails for any reason, Stanley will replace it. No proof of purchase required. Do not return the product to the store. Simply call 800-505-4648 Monday through Friday, 8 through 5 EST, and Stanley will ship a replacement. That's nice. Thank you, Stanley. My Harbor Freight will do the same thing if you bring it to the store. So they will ship you out a new replacement. So if you don't want to go to the local store, that is nice that they will send it out. And I don't know if you have to send it back yourself, but that's nice that they offer that. Your sizes for your SAE, this is where it gets a little interesting. You're missing a socket size for your SAE, but that's about it. Normally, socket sets come with 5/16, 3/8, 7/16, half, 9/16, 5/8, 11/16, and 3/4. This one only goes down to 3/8. Not that big a deal. Metric, you have your 10, 11, 12, 13, which 13 is like 7/16. It's so common. It's in between 1/2 inch and 7/16. 14, 15, 16, and 17 millimeter. I'm slowly getting into the metric thing because I'm working on cars a little bit now too, just for reference. And your Pittsburgh has 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. So you get 2 more millimeter metric sockets than you would on this one. And you get a 5/16. So overall, for your value, you'd probably be better off if you're a seasoned mechanic going with the Pittsburgh. But let's go ahead and pop these ratchets out and do a comparison. In the Pittsburgh kit, which is not included in the Stanley kit, you do get 2 extra items, which we will go over here in a second, and why it doesn't really matter that these come with the kit, because if you buy these 2 items, you have 6-point and you have 12-point. I'm happy. I'm happy I have the choice now between 6 and 12. Most people say 12 is better. I don't care. It is better in a lot of ways, but I'm still a sucker for 6-point. Ratcheting mechanism on this one is a lot noisier. This is the Pittsburgh Pro. It should be under the Pro series. Come on, Pittsburgh, what are you doing? What are you doing, Harbor Freight? You need to put these underneath Pro. You need to label these as Pro, because I've seen a lot of Pro mechanics using these pass-through socket sets. What are we doing here? Put these on Pro. Put them for 20 bucks, put them on Pro, because a lot of pros are going to use this. I'm rambling, I'm ranting, I know. Do it, Harbor Freight. Call Pittsburgh, tell them to put the Pro on here. It's a Pro tool. Both of these tools are $20 each for the whole set. The advantages on this tool versus this tool are these 2 key parts. You have a couple more sockets in the Pittsburgh, and you have an extension. This is a 3-inch extension that you can use tightening or loosening fasteners. This is the crappy wrench that's broken down a little bit. We're going to do something interesting with that here in a minute. Again, you have your sockets. And of course you have this, excuse me, this 6-point adapter. It's kind of funny how they made all of these sockets, like they made this whole thing spline, and then they went ahead and they made all of these 6-point, which I prefer. That's very interesting. I guess they wanted to give you the most time with the tool. Very weird. But there you go. If you get Pittsburgh, you get 12-point spline. Kind of interesting. Let's see if this is a Pittsburgh product. Let's see if it'll work in this. Spoiler alert, yes it will, and I'll show you why. Because it's a 6-point. Or maybe it won't. Huh. I guess that part won't work in this. That That's kind of a bummer for me because okay, yep. Nope. This one's a little smaller. So this part won't work. So you can only use that in the Pittsburgh. That's kind of disappointing. You know, I'm going to rant a little bit here for a minute. If you go out and you buy a couple of these, whether you buy a Pittsburgh or a Stanley, Stanley needs to make their own version of that, because I know a lot of guys that rave about the Pittsburgh and love the ability to turn this into a regular socket and to put an extension on here because they're afraid that they're going to break their other socket because they think this is stronger. And then they lose that ability. So I know quite a lot of guys that hate that. So, Stanley, if you're watching this video and you remake this, it's a great concept. Try to make them all universal. I know you're probably wanting them to stay away from Pittsburgh and buy your brand for the same price. But if you're not going to include one of these, why bother? You know, this is 3/8 drive. The last time I checked, this whole wrench is 3/8 drive. I can't even get this in here. It's not made for this wrench, but still, when you're in a mechanical situation and this is the only wrench you have in your hand, if you have the Pittsburgh, you're in good shape. It's actually longer too, so you're more than likely to have the Pittsburgh because it's an inch longer. But for the compactness, this would make a great asset to any mechanic. But if it's a pass-through and you can't use regular sockets, why bother? You know, what's the point? You took off an inch of the tool. It doesn't really help the fact that you took off an inch if there's no way for you to sell to the consumer who's going to be using it, and the consumer can't use the product for all the applications like they can with the Pittsburgh. There's no point. So, just a little friendly tip. You guys can make it however you want. I like the Pittsburgh where I can, you know, I'm not brand preference. These are both great wrenches, but the Pittsburgh, as much as I'm not a spline drive with 12 point, because I think it's ridiculous to put that many on this thing, I'm a 6-point spline, a 6-point hex guy, but I think the clear winner here is obviously Pittsburgh. Harbor Freight has beat out Stanley in this whole thing, and we haven't even gotten to the part 2, which is extremely sad. The only thing that's different is the ratcheting mechanism itself. And Harbor Freight, you guys are also going to get thrown out under the bus. I'm going to be honest with you. There are some mechanics. I'm going to give you guys that are watching the Achilles heel of this wrench. And Harbor Freight, you really need, I love you guys. You sell great stuff. For the price, you can't beat it. $20 versus Stanley or $15 for a Pittsburgh, I take the Pittsburgh. But I also take the Stanley for this reason. If I can put oil, if I'm changing my oil, and this is the only wrench that I can find, this is the only, by the way, wrench that I have had any problems with Pittsburgh, and oil gets into the ring right here, something wrong happens in here with the oil touching the the selection switch that makes it just go completely out of whack. and I haven't had that problem on my Stanley. I've sprayed WD-40 in this to see if it would work okay. It took it like a champ. This little thing right here did not move. It's a nice, solid one movement, and it's still intact. This thing, on the other hand, will jostle back and forth. And before anybody tells me, well, Ford, you're not supposed to put oil in these. When you're changing the oil on your vehicle, oil's going to get all over this thing. So, that's not excusable. Harbor Freight. Harbor Freight, what have you done? I'm gonna bet you guys money if I went to Harbor Freight tomorrow, change this out for another wrench, just like it, same wrench, tell them something wrong would happen to it, that it would do the same exact thing. This is a Taiwanese product, by the way. This is made in China. Taiwan's supposed to be making a little bit better. The fit and finish on this wrench is actually a lot better than the one that is in my other hand right here, the Stanley. But again, oh, the video is 16 minutes long. Anyway, that's not excusable, Pittsburgh. If you're selling this to let's say that you expand so far, Harbor Freight, and you start selling these to contractor or mechanical contractors, such as, let me give you an example, Midas. And they're changing oil with these things, and all of a sudden this thing just starts going back and forth out of whack. They're going to take this tool, they're not going to bring it back to Harbor Freight, they're going to throw it in the trash. Because they are not going to go out and buy another tool that's going to do this. And the only reason I'm not going after the Stanley is because I've just bought this. I have not given it, I've soaked it in oil, but I have not given it a real true time-tested torture test yet. But this thing has been through Hades, pretty much. It's just, maybe the mechanism got so loose. I'm sorry, Harbor Freight. You're not going to win this competition, and the reason is, you have a good product. This is great. The length on this thing is even better than the Stanley. But when it comes down to it, it doesn't matter if it has spline drive, it doesn't matter if it has a better selector switch. This thing has a pretty strong, stiff selector switch. This one's just like butter, you can flick it with your thumb. That gives you speed and advantage, but if oil gets into the mechanism, what's supposed to lubricate the system ultimately voids the tool and makes it useless. So I'm going to go ahead, and even though you throw more stuff into this tool, guys, if you're going to buy one of these Stanley, get the Stanley. Trust me. I can spray WD-40 in this tool. Swish it around, and it will not fail on me. I haven't gotten oil in it yet, but given the fact that this thing has such a tight grouping, it's the better choice. It's the better choice. Sorry, Harbor Freight. I'm not going to give it to you this time. It is a great tool, but it needs to be revisited. So, Stanley wins this one. You can keep all your Harbor Freight accoutrements that come with it, your socket adapter or whatever. Maybe you'd be better off using it as a socket wrench. Because when it comes to pass-through, even with your extension, which is pretty large, ultimately, it's not going to matter. Because the Harbor Freight extension actually does fit in this thing. No slippage, no problems. This thing's pushing right up against it. and this selector switch is not moving. So, Stanley all the way. If you get the Harbor Freight one, don't buy it for the wrench, buy it for the sockets, because the sockets are going to get you a lot farther. And the socket adapter. Get the Stanley for everything. Same price. I was very wrong with what I said before. I apologize. You're better off getting the Harbor Freight. Yeah, get the Harbor Freight, or get the Stanley. That's the end of my video, guys. Leave a comment down below if you think that the Harbor Freight didn't get a fair shake. Leave a comment below if you think the Harbor Freight ratchet got a proper beating. Leave a comment down below if you agree with me or disagree with me. I want to hear from you guys. Please leave a comment down below. The next test will be the Stanley in real life test. We will be testing this thing on the red vise right over there here in the shop. And we will be using the same classical 7/16 and we'll be using the 3/4 test because we're going with small and large and see if it can actually stand up to the hype of Stanley hand tools. Again, power tools of Stanley are not that good. They used to be really bad. They're getting better, but the hand tools are phenomenal. So, especially the passthrough ratchet. So anyway, guys, that's all the stuff I have in this video. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you want to, hit that red button down below. I do tool reviews whenever I can. And have a happy 2018. You'll be hearing me probably say that for the next week. So, see you guys in the next video. I'm Ford, and thank you for watching.